What if I told you that there are simple habits accessible to everyone, and that they have the power not only to change how others perceive you, but above all, how you perceive yourself? Carl Jung said, "You are not what you are worth, but what you show every day." The truth is, your value is not written on your face. It shows in your energy, in your gestures, in your decisions, and in the consistency of what you embody day after day. Today, I won't tell you about abstract principles. I will share with you 5 powerful habits that you can immediately integrate into your life to increase your value, not in comparison with others, but by becoming every day a clearer, more consistent, and more respected version of yourself. Before we begin, remember to subscribe to this channel, not just to press a button, but because every video published here is another weapon in your arsenal to build the life you truly desire. So, let's start right away with the first habit. Pay attention to your body language. Even before you speak a single word, your body has already spoken for you, often louder than your voice. Imagine walking into a room full of strangers. You haven't said anything yet, and they already have an impression of you. They have noticed the position of your shoulders, the direction of your chin, the confidence in your steps, and within a few seconds, they have unconsciously received a message from you. That is body language. Silent communication that precedes all sentences, all presentations, and all speeches. The problem is that many people ignore this invisible expression their whole lives. They believe self-confidence shows through good speaking. But in reality, it starts much earlier. It begins with how you occupy the space. I once met an entrepreneur whom everyone respected, not only because of his achievements, but because of the presence he carried. When he first entered the conference room, he wasn't wearing an expensive suit. He had no prepared speech to impress, but he had presence. His back was straight, shoulders open, movements calm, gaze steady, as if he knew exactly why he was there. The result? Everyone wanted to hear him before he even started to speak. The fascinating thing is, this self-confidence doesn't have to be innate. You can build it, and that's exactly where your freedom lies. Take posture, for example. Many walk with their heads down as if they want to disappear. They don't realize their body is saying, "I'm not sure if I belong here." If this is the case for you, start retraining yourself. Straighten your back. Open your shoulders slightly. Lift your chin. Not to look arrogant, but to show, "I am here." Then comes the gaze. Eye contact is one of the strongest signals you can send. Too short, and you seem insecure. Too long, and it can appear threatening, but a calm, steady look, accompanied by natural blinking, creates instant trust. I have witnessed negotiations that completely turned around simply because one person looked the other calmly in the eyes. And finally, gestures. Too many quick hand movements reveal nervousness. Stiff arms close to the body appear closed off. The secret lies in slow, deliberate movements, as if each had meaning. Look at great speakers. They don't move randomly. Each gesture underlines a word, an idea, or a feeling. But body language is not only about impressing others, it also works on yourself. This is called body feedback. Your body influences your mind, just as your mind influences your body. When you stand like a confident person, your brain gradually begins to believe it. This is not magic. It is biology. The hormones associated with confidence rise. The stress hormones drop. Try it. Next time you are nervous, take 2 minutes before entering the room. Stand upright, feet slightly apart, hands on your hips, shoulders open. Breathe deeply and walk in as if your place there was already certain, even if you still doubt inside. Because the world doesn't see your thoughts. It sees your body language. And often it is exactly that which opens or closes doors. I have seen people completely change their lives simply by changing their posture. One client, for example, shy all her life, told me she avoided professional events because she never knew what to say. I gave her a simple task, not to think about words, but only about her posture. 3 months later, she was invited to more events than she had ever imagined. Not because she learned new sentences, but because she now radiated something that made others curious to talk to her. Yes, it takes practice. At first, it will feel like a role, but it's not a mask. It's you, just a clearer, more consistent version. What you show on the outside eventually shapes what you feel inside. And don't forget, you cannot control what others think about you, but you can control what you show them. And that begins long before your first word. But there is one crucial point: a strong posture, a confident gaze, controlled gestures. All this is useless if your actions don't match. Because confident body language that hides broken promises won't fool anyone for long. And this is exactly where the next habit comes in. The one that gives weight to everything you project. Keep your promises, because trust is built not only through your body language, but through your ability to do what you say. Habit number 2. Keep your commitments. Trust is like crystal. Beautiful, valuable, but fragile. It takes time to form, and a single moment of carelessness is enough to destroy it. And nothing breaks this crystal faster than unkempt promises. Many believe that only big promises matter, but that's not true. Even small commitments carry enormous weight. When you tell a friend, "I'll call you tomorrow," and forget, you unconsciously send the message, "My cannot be relied upon." Even if it wasn't intentional, even if you had a good reason, your image gets scratched. And over time, this undermines your credibility. I once worked with a team leader in a large company, a brilliant, charismatic man, but with one flaw. He said yes too often. A colleague needed help? Yes. A client demanded an urgent report? Yes. A family member wanted him to attend an event? Yes. But in reality, he couldn't keep it all. The result? He disappointed many, often without realizing it. And little by little, people stopped relying on him. The lesson is simple. It is better to promise less and always keep it than to promise much and sometimes break it. Because a promise is not just a sentence. It is an invisible contract between you and the other person. And every time you keep it, you carve your name deeper into the stone of trust. There is also an intimate dimension. When you keep your word, you gain not only the respect of others but also your own. Every time you fulfill a promise, no matter how small, you strengthen your self-esteem. You prove to yourself, "I am reliable." And the more you see yourself as a trustworthy person, the more your ability to take on greater responsibility grows. I have experienced incredible changes in this regard. For example, a young man complained that he was not respected at work. "I am competent, but nobody takes me seriously," he said. When I observed him, it quickly became clear. He often arrived late to meetings, postponed tasks, forgot details he had promised. Nothing dramatic in itself, but taken together, it destroyed his reputation. We worked on a simple rule: never promise anything he couldn't keep 100%. 6 months later, he was promoted, not because he had learned new skills, but because he had changed the way he handled commitments. That does not mean you always have to say yes. On the contrary, people who really keep their word are often those who can clearly say no without guilt. They understand that a rejected promise is more honest and respectful than making one and breaking it later. An example: a friend of mine, a fitness trainer, never takes on more than 6 clients at once, even though he could handle 10, even if it means refusing money. Why? Because he knows that if he takes more, he cannot deliver the quality he promises. And it is exactly this consistency that builds his reputation. People know if he commits, he is there 100%. And here is a rule you can apply immediately. If you cannot keep a promise, say it in time. It is 1,000 times better to honestly admit beforehand that you cannot deliver a task on time than to let someone wait until they discover the truth themselves. Transparency preserves trust. But most importantly, the commitments you make to yourself are the most crucial. Deciding to get up early tomorrow and then staying in bed, telling yourself you will start a project and postponing it. These small self-betrayals send your mind the worst message. My word doesn't mean much, and this eats away at your motivation and self-worth. That is why keep one promise to yourself every day, no matter how small. It can be something as simple as drinking more water, taking a 10-minute walk, or finishing a chapter in a book. It is less about the action itself and more about keeping your own word. Remember, even a trivial promise you fulfill is an investment. You may not see the effect immediately, but over time it builds a reputation that opens doors you never thought would open for you. And now there is something even more powerful than keeping your commitments. Understanding that sometimes it is not what you say, but what you hear that creates true connection with others. If you really want to earn respect and admiration, you must also know when silence and listening are more powerful than speaking. That is exactly what the next habit is about. Talk less, listen more. If what you have heard so far has inspired you, then remember to subscribe to the channel now, because the next habit might be the one that makes the difference in your life. Habit 3. Talk less, listen more. There is a truth that few people truly grasp. It is not the talkers who are remembered, but those who can listen. In a world flooded with words, the one who listens is rare and therefore precious. Truly, listening does not mean simply waiting for your chance to speak. It does not mean nodding while you are already preparing your response inside. Listening means setting aside your own thoughts and entering the world of the other person as if their story were for a few minutes more important than your own. I once met a leader who was respected by everyone not because he had the best ideas, but because he made others feel important. When an employee came to him, he put everything aside, looked them in the eyes, and listened as if every word carried weight. He asked questions not to test or corner them, but to understand. And the crazy thing is, in a company where everyone was chasing results, he understood that true strength lies in giving space to another person's voice. Once I observed a scene in a cafe. A man and a woman were talking, obviously a couple. The man talked non-stop so much that he didn't notice how the woman looked away and clutched her cup tightly. Once she tried to say something, but he interrupted her, not out of malice, but out of habit. And I wondered how many conversations create invisible distance just because one of the two cannot be silent at the right moment. When you truly listen, you send a silent but powerful message. You matter to me. And that is a message one carries in the heart far longer than any brilliant speech. Deep listening has another advantage. It makes you wiser. Every person you meet knows something you don't. An experience, a lesson, a perspective. But to discover it, you must create space. Paradoxically, you learn more by talking less. I call this the mirror effect. When you listen, you become the mirror in which the other person sees themselves more clearly. Sometimes just voicing their own thoughts is enough for the person to find their own answers, and you become the one who enables that clarity without saying much at all. But listening does not only mean being silent, it also means showing that you are present through eye contact, small facial expressions, questions that prove you have truly heard. If someone tells you they had a hard day, you can simply ask what exactly happened instead of immediately telling your own story of a bad day. And there is also a golden rule. Do not interrupt silence. Silence is only uncomfortable for those who are not used to listening. But often the deepest words come right after a moment of silence. Allow that space. It is precious. I have seen this habit transform entire relationships. A friend of mine had great difficulties with his teenage son. Every conversation ended in an argument. One day, he decided not to respond immediately, but simply to listen and only ask simple questions. The first time the son was surprised. The second time he spoke longer, and after a few weeks their conversations became calmer and more honest. They were not suddenly in agreement on everything, but listening had opened a door that words had kept closed until then. And that is exactly where the power lies. Listening does not guarantee that you will convince the other, but it guarantees that they will feel understood. And in a world where everyone just wants to be right, this feeling of being understood is a rare resource. Of course, balance is needed. Listening does not mean erasing yourself. There are moments when you must speak, share your ideas, and defend them. But most of the time, the impact of your words depends on how well you listened beforehand. It is like an archer drawing the bowstring. The more time he takes to aim, the farther the arrow flies. So ask yourself at your next conversation, am I really listening or just waiting for my turn? If it is the latter, slow down, take a breath, give the other person space. You will be amazed how much people open up when they feel they have your full attention. And there is yet another unexpected effect. The more you listen, the more sensitive you become to details that others overlook. Micro expressions, small pauses in the voice, word choice. It is precisely these signals that allow you to understand more deeply than words alone ever could. And this deeper perception gives you an advantage in friendships, relationships, in business, or in negotiations. Listening is ultimately an art, and like any art, it gets better with practice. Start today. Speak less, listen more, and observe what changes. Sometimes this genuine listening also reveals something essential, that the person in front of you already has an idea of who you are simply through the image you present outwardly. And that is exactly what the next habit is about. Dress like the person you want to become. Habit 4. Dress in alignment with the person you want to become. Your clothing style is a silent language. Every color, every cut, every accessory tells a story. And you are the one writing this story. Whether you realize it or not, people read your appearance like a book cover. They don't know the content yet, but they often decide within seconds whether they want to keep turning the pages. It's not about superficiality, but about coherence. Your outward image should match the person you want to become, not only the one you currently are. I remember a young man I met at a seminar. Brilliant, ambitious, full of ideas, but dressed as if he had just rolled out of bed. A wrinkled t-shirt, dirty sneakers, sagging pants. When I asked him why, he replied, "I want people to judge me for my ideas, not my clothes." That's when I explained something I had painfully learned myself. The world doesn't work that way. People see you before they hear you. And if your appearance does not reflect the quality of what you have to offer, you are already starting at a disadvantage. Dressing like the person you want to become doesn't mean spending a fortune on brands. It means choosing clean, well-fitting clothes that show energy, discipline, and intention. Asking yourself every morning, does what I wear today tell the story I want to share with the world? A coach I know calls this the technique of invisible armor. Every morning he chooses his clothes like a soldier selects his armor before battle. Not to impress, but to feel ready. He knows a well-tailored suit, a neat shirt, or even a simple clean polo changes how he perceives himself. And when you feel ready, you act differently. That is the key. Clothing changes not only how others see you, but also how you see yourself. Psychological studies show that people who wear clothes associated with competence or authority act more confidently and precisely, not by chance. Your mind adapts to your image. I remember a woman before an important job interview. She was torn between a casual dress and an elegant suit. She chose the suit even though she feared being overdressed. Yet the moment she saw herself in the mirror, she walked differently, spoke differently, breathed differently, and got the job. Not just because of her skills, but because she entered the room already as the version of herself she wanted to show. But beware. Being well-dressed does not mean copying someone else's style. It means finding your own coherence. What works for a CEO in a three-piece suit does not necessarily fit a creative artist or a digital entrepreneur. The important thing is to choose clothes that fit your personality and ambition. Another crucial point is care. The most beautiful shirt loses its effect if it is wrinkled. The most expensive shoes look sloppy if they are unpolished. The care you give to your appearance is a direct reflection of the care you give to your work, your relationships, and your life. And there is a subtle dimension. Clothing not only speaks for you, but it can also open conversations. A striking color draws attention. A special accessory can become a conversation starter. I have seen professional collaborations arise from a simple compliment about a watch or a jacket. How do you implement this habit? Start simple. Divide your wardrobe into 2 sections. Clothes that make you feel strong and confident, and clothes that drag you down. Each morning only choose from the first section even on ordinary days, because every day is an opportunity to embody the person you want to become. And remember, it's not about vanity but about respect. Respect for yourself and for others. When you take care of your appearance, you send a clear message. I take this meeting seriously. And that message sticks. Now we come to another sign of respect, perhaps even more powerful than clothing: punctuality. Because being punctual means telling the other person your time is as important to me as mine. Habit 5. Be punctual more than a question of the clock, question of respect. Carl Jung once said, "What you focus your attention on gains meaning in your life." Being punctual does not only mean arriving before the door closes. It means valuing your own life and that of others. It is a silent declaration of discipline, reliability, and respect toward yourself, your work, and your environment. I remember a small story that illustrates this. A young man had a job interview for a position he had dreamed of for years. He set off early, but along the way, he met a friend and thought, I still have a few minutes. Those few minutes turned into 10, then 15. Finally, he arrived 3 minutes late and completely out of breath. The recruiter greeted him politely with a smile, but the interview was basically already lost. Not because he lacked the skills, but because in the eyes of his future boss, he had proven that he could not manage the most important resource, time. Being punctual does not mean living obsessed with the clock. It means always being one step ahead of your time. When you arrive on time, you are mentally prepared. You start relaxed. You are ahead of your goals. And above all, you send a clear message. I am reliable. You can count on me. A practical tip. Train yourself to always leave 10 minutes earlier than necessary. This creates a safety buffer for the unexpected. And if you arrive too early, use the time to review your notes, meditate, or simply observe your surroundings. Those gained minutes already put you in the right energy. Carl Jung was right. Punctuality is not just a matter of minutes. It is a mindset. It is a way to show the world that you have clarity, self-control, and respect. You see, these 5 habits may look simple on paper, but if you live them daily, they profoundly change how you go through life. Reading every day to nourish your mind, exercising to sustain your energy, learning to manage your money to prepare your future, keeping a goal journal to stay on track, and above all, being punctual, not only out of respect for others, but also out of respect for yourself. Because punctuality means sending a clear message. I take my life seriously. And if you apply all this, even just a little, each day, you will quickly notice your results no longer depend only on mood or motivation, but on your system, on your habits. Don't forget to subscribe to the Wisdom Archive.